This is going to be a first example of displacement maps in Maya. So first of all, I have made a plane. So I have a source model here, and it's just easier for me to make a plane like this. We have this noticeable crease that goes inside that would be impossible to make with a simple displacement and so on. This is a densed up version, and for the start I'm gonna say that the size of this plane, like, it's the same size if we flatten into UVs, so it is the same size and it matters, and I'm gonna talk over it about later on when we go to the next example. So I have this model, like here it's a flattened model, and this is the model that is already transferred. So what I did later on, I made sure that the UVs are almost the same, and I just did a transfer attributes by UVs. I've relaxed the UVs that they will be equal after modeling from the other one. So I did a mesh transfer attributes and went here, turned off this, and moved it by UVs. Normals are not required because I'm gonna log them later on, but so I have this high model and I have this, for example, this one, and it's low poly. So I'm gonna transfer it. And now I'm getting a model that I can reconstruct in Mudbox. So I'm gonna export it. I prefer using your chase. Okay, so I'm going here. And as far as I know, Mudbox always likes to start every baking from the first UDIM, and it denses up the model every time. So if we have model that is placed here, let's place it there and then rename it later on. I'm not sure about it with how it is with a 220 Mudbox, but it was like this with 217. I'm gonna use Mudbox 220 for baking. Okay, I have something here. I'm gonna start a new scene because this one I opened before. Here I'm gonna do a new scene. Let's go to Mudbox. Okay, so we had something I did before. I'm gonna show it later on. And I'm gonna just do a new scene. And I'm gonna import close, fail, import, desktop, reconstruct. So I have this dense mesh. I'm gonna hit W to turn off the subdivisions. I can turn on the turn off the mesh errors because I don't like. Sometimes when mesh is too small, it shows errors, and I'm gonna turn on double-sided if I find it. Show both sides. Okay. Navigation is with Alt, but it doesn't matter. So now I'm gonna go to mesh and rebuild subdivision levels. To go up and down, I'm gonna use page up, page down. Sometimes when you're a ZBrush, usually it's good to change it to Shift D and so on. So now we have something that will not make the same structure after using displacement maps. We can see it here, but now we can like bake the displacement map. So let's go to bake displacement map section, extract new operation. Let's go to vector displacement map, and we're gonna use both meshes as the same. Source will be on the level 6. We're gonna check the smooth target model. We're gonna crease hard edges, and for the sake of the test, I think that this will be enough. And what we need to use is a relative tangent. Why? I'm working with characters, so when the meshes has to be like a edited, like manipulated with joints and so on, it has to be in tangent space normals. If it's not, then it can be probably in object space. Okay, so let's go to desktop. I'm gonna make a new folder. Test vector. Okay. Let's make it properly because it doesn't look good. Bake. So now I know that it's only in the first it doesn't show here, but it works. It's in a first UV. You can check the UVs. It's okay. So we're gonna bake from 6th level to 1st by subdivisions, and let's do the bake. Desktop. Let's wait for the bake. And this should work with Maya 217 app with built-in Arnold. And I'm gonna export the OBJ also, just to have it. But it should work on a flat surface too, because it's not much of a difference. Okay, so we got the maps. We have the displacement map here. It's like this, because it's in one direction mostly. And now I'm gonna just select this one and say export selection also to desktop. Level 0, save effort. It might be exported with texture, I don't need this. So I'm going to just copy this and now go to Maya. And I'm going to just import this one. Okay, let's have it here. So we have this plane. I can soften it. Just the normals, doesn't matter. Let's start creating some lights, because Arnold doesn't render with default Maya lights, and see if we have like something that we can see there. One light will be enough, maybe. I might give two to. I think I have a big resolutions here. Okay, we have something in lighting. Let's go to settings, because probably some project settings. And let's go to 1, 1, 0, 0, 0, 0. Common resolution. Let's go 640, 840. And let's check it one more time. I've got an error in Arnold. Check, maybe it will work with Arnold render view. Okay. Let's play. Okay, it works, so we're not gonna turn on this. Let's go with the Arnold settings. And I know that I have 6, but I'm not going to go overboard, so I'm going to go to 5 and Canton Clark. Adaptive error, I don't care at this point, no optimization is needed. Let's tap this one and let's give it a shader. Daring editor, hypershade. I'm gonna just do a standard shader. Saying the truth, I will not be doing anything here, but we'll concentrate on this one. So I like to do is just go and select the shading group and create this simple displacement map, and then I will be unhacking up the stuff here, because this will not be connected here, but we're gonna connect this in here. Okay, so it's connected. Let's change this to vector displacement. Okay, it's already done. So now we can go to this. It's really rough. I'm gonna check this because I more like sure that it's not changing anyway. So I'm gonna go here. So the displacement is set up, and now across the fingers it should work. Let's assign the shader. As we can see, we managed to get the crease. Let's pause it for a second and add some better lighting. It should bake. Let's just clarify that it's like properly set up. But it should be okay. Yeah. So we have a bake, but we have this shadow, so I'm gonna just duplicate this and do from bottom, or just create Arnold light, dome light, and now everything will be lighten up from all directions. I'm gonna delete these lights here, and I'm gonna add some specular roughness, not really, but as we can see, we managed to get the, and to clarify that it's vector displacement, that this angle here doesn't make anything much. I'm gonna just flatten this out. Okay, so this angle wasn't that much of a deal, but we still got this vector displacement not working. So now we don't have any issues because this model here is like a same size. One-to-one, so even if I get my tool, it's the same size. When you flatten everything, like this is the full UDIM, everything is getting flattened to such small area here. So okay, so I'm gonna save this just wonder if the plane will remain or will just open a new model. So here we have some like problems detected. It's due to the fact that the mesh is really dense, so I'm going to just keep all. So I'm going to rebuild the subdivisions now. And here's a funny fact, because Mudbox has a proper subdivision algorithm, not like Mudbox. Okay, so now we have the lower frame. I can go down, not to have too much edge down. So I'm gonna use the lowest city map here for it. First I'm gonna select model and I'm gonna export. So I'm going to name it pens 0, but this time pens, just to be sure that I'm going to import proper model. And now like this model already has UVs set up on 2 DIMMs, and I'm going to bake the displacement map here. And I'm going to just bake the vector displacement map, and of course from the highest level to the lowest. If somebody wants to have like more information from simulation, then he can go, but this is more for the purpose of showing that it works. So I want all those faults to work here, and I don't don't recall if there was any like a vector displacement brushes used to do some undercuts and so on. Okay, so relative tangents, let's make another folder. And maybe the same, but let's make a subfolder just to. And I'm gonna go pens because we have two meshes here. I'm gonna call it pens. Okay, so I'm staying with relative tangents. Here's, I don't know why it's not showing anything. 32 bits, of course. I don't want to preview this, and I think that I'm gonna go a bit higher. 2K would be enough to show off everything, no aliasing, just to make it faster. Let's go here. Okay, we have the folders. Just to have it like, I'm gonna just bring it here. Let's just import those pens. I'm gonna import those first. Where was it? Update. Let's have the pens here. Okay, so the pens are quite big comparing to the other one, and what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna use my tool to flatten it out, and let's flatten 2 UVs. Okay, so as I said, this is the size of the UVs, and within this size the vector displacement map will work well, and for this one here it will need an adjustment. I'm gonna save it just to have like yeah, I'm just gonna save it for backup. I'm gonna go to Hypershade and prep a new shader, a standard, and it's the same approach. So I'm gonna just create a, maybe this time by hand, displacement shader. The displacement can delete this here, and what we need is here. I'm just gonna drag and drop on the displacement material here. So we already have this connected, and I'm gonna switch it to tangent space as before, and I'm gonna create a fail texture here. I'm using tabulator button to do this, and now I'm just gonna create out color to a vector. So here we have to have it raw. I tend to ignore color space rules because if it's not set, it might use a different color space here, so I ignore it, and I know pretty sure that the color space is working. And I'm gonna change it to a 01 Mudbox. This is a UV tile because I don't want to rename the UDIMs. So let's check if anything is already done. Okay, so as I said, U1, 2, and so on, UV tile. There's also a version that starts from 0, but this one doesn't. And first of all, I'm gonna drag and drop this material on this here, and I'm gonna check it here. This pens I'm gonna put in a separate layer and hide it. And let's check if the material is plugged in. Okay, material is plugged in. No, it's not. Assign. Okay. Material attributes. A standard, everything's in. Let's select the model and go to Catmull Clark and hit 85. And now we can see that we will see that it should work. Hope so. I want to have the Arnold view because there I had an error. Where's the camera? So we can see that this went. No, this is not this. Let's check it one more time. Subdivision. So it's rendering, but it's a bit flat in this lightning. I don't know if I have any HDRIs, but we can give it a ramp maybe. So and a bit darker, and let's give it a bulge pattern. Can crank it up a bit. Let's flatten this in the angle. I want to hide this because I don't need it. We got the 640. Yeah. Okay, so let's wait for the pens to work. Let's do 4 here. So it was the noise from the make them darker to be more visible. I'm gonna change the resolution. Let's make it 1K, Full HD or 70p. Okay, so now we could. So we've got all these creases and so on going on here. Let's give it a crank it up a bit. So we know that it works, and I'm gonna put the same material on these pens that I've hidden. Here are the pens. So I'm gonna first of all go to settings, go to 5, 4 maybe, Captain Clark. Let's give him some error, maybe this much. First Arnold render view, where do we go? So now we have the flat pens, and I'm gonna assign the shader standard 2. So I can see that there's no displacement, and why? Because there's the big difference in scale, and the scale is, for some reason, it's like in a UV space. So I think 5 was the one that worked fine for me. and I'm gonna remove the material here because it started to work nicely. Oh, here we go. And I can go to Mudbox for comparison. I think 5 was good enough. And let's select this one, wireframe off, page up. So we have pens here. Let's try some. I'd go with some HDRI maybe. Delete this here, and I'm gonna use one of the tools that I've made, and it wants to convert this on the start. I don't like that. Okay, so shader is different, so I'm gonna just lower the density and so on. And let's lower the weight of the bolt here. And let's compare this folds here. And there is no way that it would happen without it, so on. And it's a bit lower this resolution, so some things might not be that visible, but they are. It might be that 5 was not good enough. Saying the truth, we just need to find something that is the less stretched UV on it, measure it, and measure it in UV space on the flattened model or something, and then plug in that value. Let me just check the I think I was like cranking it up to 8, but I had errors on these edges, like just crossing this, it was like crossing a bit, so okay. There were errors here, so it might be, but we can see it's like 8 now. It shouldn't be eyeballed, but at this point I never did a test to unball it, but it works. So it works. It's important to plug in the it's time to end it. It's important to plug the whole value, at least what was mentioned in Arnold. In Arnold documentation. So it was mentioned in Arnold documentation just to plug in the whole out color to the input, not separate values. I don't know why, in my opinion shouldn't matter, but yeah. So this is how the vector displacement with Mudbox works. We can see that there's like a bit too big value might be here because there was like crossing so on. I think it might be around 7 so on, but it works, and it works in bending objects so on because of tangent. Thank you.